of an attitude like A&M at the time, was it A&M at the time, I guess, which is now Universal, that there was a certain co-opting going on. Like, you know, we had wanted help earlier on in our careers and didn't get it, but then when we had made it sort of a going concern ourselves, then we were swooped in upon by a whole bunch of record labels, which always happens. But I think it's that was, you know, we sort of figured hooking up with a label like A&M would make the administration part of it, and just would make it easier for us to just stick to the making the art, getting on the road and playing. And it just became so much hassle and so much pressure and so much stuff from the top down that, you know, that was one of the major reasons that it sort of blew up.
And they constantly didn't understand why we made the decisions we made. Like we would I think one thing we did really well was we really had a very sound idea of how we wanted to control how the band grew, and that we wouldn't do things that just were there for the sake of doing and didn't make us sort of feel like we were moving forward. So consequently we turned down, like, you know, a huge 5-night stand in BC with Bryan Adams, and turned down tours with the Bare Naked Ladies and stuff like that. And they were always like, "Well, what do you mean? Like, I mean, that's what a band does." But to us, it just none of that felt right or felt like it was going to help our career or help our souls as musicians. So we just turned them down, and there was that constant sort of struggle between our ideologies and theirs.
So getting back together though, when it finally came time to make a new record, was it sort of like, now you have a chance to do things your way, and did you fight to get things done your way, and make sure that you didn't have to do things that you didn't want to do, and that things were being put out your way and done the right way this time?
Well, ironically, I mean, the fact that there was a buzz, I mean, it's sort of like we just came home to, it's almost like we came home full circle to the way it was in '91, which is that the people making a buzz about us playing were, you know, record buyers and people who go to live shows and stuff like that, and, you know, in some parts of the promotion industry in Toronto. But so we got back to doing it, and it's not like there was people busting our door down for a new record in any major labels or small labels or anything. So we went into making the record completely unhindered. You know, we just made the record we wanted to make
on your own.
Yeah, on our own, with our own money, and the great thing about it was that we incorporated Stephen had a solo project during that period of time as well, so he'd done a lot more writing on his own than he had previously done with The Lowest of the Low, and then I had the Rusty Nails, so we kind of had all these influences that we could bring in that were new. And I had worked with the Rusty Nails with Ian Blurton in Toronto, producing Rusty Nails records, and then The Lowest of the Low did some demoing with him, and he's a person we really respect and consider kind of like, he's very like-minded to us, and he's been in the scene in the same way we have, in a very grassroots way with Change of Heart and Blurtonian and stuff like that. So he was kind of like a sixth member at that point, you know, and his opinions and everything were very, you know, held a lot of weight. So we went and made this record, and we made it on our own and with our own decisions and our own drive, and I think it just sort of accumulated, you know, certainly we weren't jettisoning our old Lowest of the Low sound, but like there was that, and then there was all the stuff that we learned in the meantime put into the stew as well, and we're pretty proud of it, and and it felt very much like it was a piece of forward work. So that's why it's sort of a double whammy when people A, suggest that we're at all in this for the money, or B, that we're trying to recapture what we did in the early '90s. Because we really don't feel that's the case.
For someone like me looking in on the outside, I'd seen the reunion shows and stuff, and thought you sounded good, but it was mostly older stuff. And so when you went in to do a new record, I was very, very curious to find out whether you could still do it, whether you would, you know, draw from the same pile you'd done before, or whether you'd do something completely different. So there was a lot of expectations, I would imagine, on the parts of the fans. But did you feel pressure to outdo what you had done before, or do the same thing that you had done before, or?
I don't think we felt any pressure in any way. I think that's, as much as Shakes My Butt is a bit of a sort of a, you know, both a gold medal and an albatross around our necks. It's like, it didn't influence how we looked at this record, and when we made that record, we didn't feel any pressure. It was just something we did. We just did that record, and people happened to like it. And I think there was a lot of the same attitudes with this one. I don't think there was any sort of sense of, we've never had any sort of calculated discussions about this is the type of record we're going to make. We let it all happen fairly organically. There was discussion on this record about how we were going to construct it after the songs were there, and I think that was premeditated, and Ian was involved in a lot of that. But pressure, I think Ron said it before, there wasn't any, and there was no pressure from the side that you had to make a record like this. We've talked about that a bit too, because our label Maple wasn't involved in any of the sort of ordinary A&R decisions, and I'm not sure if they will plan to be from this point on, but you know, we just did what we wanted to do.
So the record, I mean, obviously you must be happy with it, having done it your way, and I think it's a wonderful record, and I think it captures what I loved about the band before, but takes me to a new place because we're all a little older and a little perhaps a little more intelligent than we were in 1991, and I think a lot of that is captured in the record. But did folks who liked you back in the day, was that sort of the similar reaction, or do you think you lost some fans from back then?
Well, it's a double-edged sword when you do.
Does it matter?
Yeah, like unfortunately and fortunately, I don't think it matters. I mean, like we've never. I mean, as much as we respect our audience, and I think we've always tried to be engaged with what we're doing, and just be in the moment and be there with it. We've never let any perceived audience desires from us dictate where we're going, because I mean that's a crazy thing to try and do anyway, because you can never know, what is really going on in the like there's no sort of audience zeitgeist you can sort of tap into and go, okay, well obviously the audience wants us to go here.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've lost track of what I was going to say about